One step will turn into a black primer. It will help neutralize the rust. But it's very important to come back and sand in it before applying the body filler or the resin. Now that the one step has dried for 24 hours, we've come back and sanded to make sure we have a good surface for adhesion. The mixing ratio for fiberglass resin is 12 drops of hardener per ounce of resin. We have about 3 ounces here. We're going to be mixing in 36 drops. Okay, we're going to take our pre-cut fiberglass and push it down into the fiberglass resin so that we get good wet out. This is very important. And while the fiberglass is saturating, we're going to go ahead and brush on a coat of resin on the damaged area. You're going to wet the surface real well with the fiberglass resin. That will allow the fiberglass mat to adhere to it better. Okay. I'm going to put on our first piece of fiberglass here. Once you apply your first coat of resin and then your mat, and you get your entrapped air out, then you want to come back and with your last coat of resin over the top of it. This same process can be used with all the different layers of fiberglass that you feel like you need. On this particular repair, we are going to be applying about 2 layers of fiberglass mat. It's been a couple hours now since the fiberglass has dried. As you can see, we've fiberglassed over this very difficult rust out. What we're going to do now is come back and sand it with 80 grit sandpaper to get it prepared for a skin coat of the Bondo body filler. We've just sanded the area of the fiberglass repair with 80 grit sandpaper. We're going to apply a thin coat of the Bondo auto body putty, which will give us a little bit more paintable surface. As you can see, we've come back over the fiberglass repair with a skin coat of Bondo body filler. We've sanded that with 80 grit sandpaper, and now we're ready to prepare the surface for priming. We're going to wipe the surface to remove any of the dust. And then we will wipe again with the tack cloth. Which will pick up all the loose dust. Now we're ready to prime this area. Remember to use long strokes and not to hold the can in one area. Keep the can moving. If you were to get any runs in your primer or paint, remember that you can always go back and remove them. Now that we've applied our first coat of primer, we're going to come back and apply a thin layer of the spot and glazing putty. Once we've done that and the spot and glazing putty has dried, we will sand the spot and glazing putty with 220 grit sandpaper. Then we will reprime, sand the primer with 400 grit sandpaper, and paint the damaged area. This here will be a good repair to show you how to use our Bondo hair product. This is your typical weld weld rust out. And we'll need to remove the paint and the loose rust here with our 80 grit sandpaper. Now that we've sanded all the rust and the loose paint, we're going to clean the area off with a clean, dry cloth. We're going to tap the rough edges of this rust inward so we can come back with a filler and fill it. And then we're going to come back and treat this area with the Marhide 1 step to neutralize the rust that we were not able to remove. Now that the 1 step has dried overnight, we've come back and sanded the area with 220 grit sandpaper so that the Bondo hair will adhere to it. Now we're ready to apply the Bondo hair to this damaged area. As you can see, the Bondo hair is a Bondo body filler that has been fiberglass reinforced with fiberglass strands. This will make our repair a waterproof and watertight repair, and also will be beneficial when bridging over holes. We've dipped out about a half pint here, and we're going to squeeze out about a 7-inch ribbon. It's about 4 inches there, and we'll give another 3-inch ribbon here. Always remember, when using any of the Bondo automotive products, when mixing, you should always use a non-porous surface. Never use cardboard or wax cups or anything of that nature. I'm going to take the Bondo hair now and bridge over these cavities. The good thing about using Bondo hair is that it's not really necessary to use the metal mesh, because the fiberglass reinforced product will bridge over these holes. The Bondo hair now has dried for about 10 to 12 minutes, and now we can cheese grate it, which will save us a lot of sanding time. After cheese grating this, we're going to come back with an 80 grit sandpaper and sand it just a little bit smoother, and then we'll make an application of the Bondo body filler, a thin coat, to make a little bit more desirable paintable surface. I'm going to wipe down the surface with a clean, dry cloth to remove the dust. And what we're going to do now is come back and apply a thin coat of the Bondo body filler, which will help us to end up with a little bit more desirable paintable surface. And just remember, this is what makes it so easy. Once you get to the body filler stage and using any of the Bondo products, the repair procedures and steps remain the same. We're going to apply a thin coat of the Bondo auto body filler here. We'll end up with a little bit smoother surface.